I think that for me was a really big influential thing, was actually living in the neighborhood that had the families that I was working with. I know that's not appropriate for everyone in every field, but for the work I was doing, it really was. And then once I went to grad school and started working on my master's, my internship work was with women who were doing inpatient for substance and alcohol use disorders. And so that was really intensive and hard work. And I think that those interactions with those women and kind of learning their stories, partnered with that time kind of living in the neighborhood and learning from that together, really helped shape how I see.
Absolutely. All great advice there, especially. I had to laugh a little bit, Catherine, because my best friend went to law school and ended up in family court and is now a nonprofit management consultant. She didn't last longer there either. And it is a very important point about not just knowing what you like, but what you don't like. And Emily, I really liked your point about being a part of that community. I think that's really important. Okay, my next question is, how did the idea of who you know play a role in your own career path, whether it was a direct connection or networking or word of mouth or even referral? How important is networking, or was it in your career path?
Super important, especially for what I have going on right now. Just people that I have worked with from other entities, they will connect me with another entity that will help the programs that I do serve, which is youth and veterans. Always use LinkedIn. You never know who is watching you on LinkedIn. I'm not even joking. A director from the Texas Rangers, reached out to me because they saw my work on LinkedIn. And so I'm able to get my youth and my veterans free tickets for the future Ranger games. So always go for it. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know who's paying attention.
And I'll have to agree, especially being more old school, you know, in the old days, you know, we'd have like the little business cards, and like I'd have a huge stack of them. And you don't do that anymore, but I still have a huge stack. But it's kind of, and it's important. So I'm just thinking also in our internships, right? That whether it was good or bad experience in the internship, and I'll go back to the guardianship court, the experience itself was not something I'll go work at, but the judge and the people I work with now can, if I need something, and this is even now here today, like meeting all of you, I really love, Emily, what your work you're doing, and it kind of goes with what we do here at transitional housing. I'm like, hey, Emily, we met there, and I have a client here that needs some housing, and she might be going your way. And so it's just, that's what social work, socialization, knowing each other, and in the most professional and in the friendly way, to where we know, hey, I'm calling on your ring, so maybe you don't want to meet me today because I might call you at some time. But like Ms. Lam says, it's very important. You need to keep those connections. It's social work.
I am in agreement with both of you. It feels like this field, even though it's got a lot of people in it, sometimes it does feel like a really small world. Like you don't realize that you're going to run back into people, even people who aren't in the same state or region as you. You kind of a lot of times, as you dive deeper into your work and learn about other places that are doing similar work or have similar hearts, you find yourself kind of bumping back into the same people and kind of building connection. And so that's a really a big deal in the positive direction. And another thing that's really helpful is kind of learning. There's a lot of places that do amazing and great work, and then there's other places that can be pretty dangerous or not safe for people. And so kind of learning to be connected so that you can provide the safest and best care for those that you're serving, and kind of learn who you need to kind of avoid too, to be quite honest.
Well, I'm gonna go off my script list here real quick and do a follow-up on that question. You know, networking is not natural for college students. Don't know how to do it, never had to really do it before, or at least in terms of what we think networking is. What advice do you have for someone who doesn't have the confidence in knowing what they're doing, and how to get started.
So in person, if you go, there's tons of networking events in person and young professional type of events. I would say just sign yourself up for it and go to one of those and just kind of, you never know what it's going to be. You might see a familiar face. You might see a familiar face to where you're more comfortable. And you can kind of just get in the feel for how everybody's doing. You're just going to say hi. I think getting out of the comfort zone, if you're a big introvert and that's kind of like very timid for you, creating that LinkedIn profile and connecting with people in your network. TWU is a very good one. Connecting with past graduates, alumni, even current students in that area. Or bring a buddy. Bring a buddy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You can have another colleague from work or from a school friend that you go together, because I used to be very introverted. I used to be. But again, if we're going to advocate for our clients and we're choosing to be in that role of social work, it becomes not, this is what I tell interns, it's not personal in the sense, this is about helping other people. What do I need to do to get the job done? And it's kind of, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to try it. And I think that for me, it's just that being yourself too. We don't need to, this is me, I'm with this agency. And, and that's all people are going to expect from me at these type of events anyway. It's just like, this is who I'm with. And, the conversation will start to flow. But I think if you're really devout to being a social worker and social work, remembering who we're doing this for, and where the advocacy is coming for you, that component might maybe give you that little bit more of it's to help these kids, it's to help these ladies. So that might be helpful.
And for me, I think I would say finding your why. So when people get into social work, they oftentimes already know something that they're passionate about, or they kind of find the avenue that they're passionate about in the work. And when you are at networking events, I know I'm pretty introverted, and so it's hard for me sometimes at those, but it's not hard for me to talk about what I'm passionate about, what I love about the women I get to work with here, what I love about being an advocate for change, what I love about those kinds of things. And so if you can kind of find your why and practice talking about those things, then it feels a lot less like, oh gosh, I'm going as a representative for my organization and I have to be really professional. And it becomes more about like exciting to get to share what you're passionate about and meet other people who maybe have different things that they're passionate about or who join you in your passion. And also that's just kind of the way to be remembered anyway. I mean, a lot of times when I meet somebody, I don't remember the name of the organization they work for, but I remember them and can kind of reconnect who they work for. Because it's really a lot about kind of how the person presents themselves and talks about their passion.
I love all of that advice and information. And sometimes it's just practicing, right? And getting out there and doing it and getting out of our comfort zone. All right, back to my script and list of questions here. What are a couple of key skills, whether they're soft or hard skills, technical skills, that you found to be vital in your work? And how are you able to build upon these skills early in your career?
For me, I would definitely say time management. Working with grant programs, there are deadlines that you have to meet. If you get it done in advance, that's even better. But for my part, I was managing 3 grant programs at one time, and I had to get very good at time management. Putting in time for the things that I have to do, but also for my staff and then for the grant also. That's the biggest one. The second one I would say is flexibility. Sometimes things happen to where you have to be pulled in a certain direction and your team needs you, or somebody from leadership needs you. You have to be able to be flexible with that. Or even it's like an emergency with a youth program that I manage. We have 16 to 24-year-olds and they're working to get their GED and earn work experience. And during this time, they could have like a midlife crisis in the middle of everything. So we have to be able to be flexible for them and just accommodate the ones that we have. And I would also say self-motivation is a really big one. What do you want to do? Why are you doing it? What's like the purpose? And to build upon that I have the questions printed out so I don't fall behind. How was I able to build upon this? I would say that it was the fact that I was so flexible that I was, let me see, let me reword this. Maybe you can come back to me. I don't want to keep you.
No worries.
I think for me, and the role I play here, and quite honestly, now in retrospect, in these years, I've been doing this 30 years now. And I think what I can say is most important is the ability to manage anxiety. Because, and I learned that through the process of obviously, there's a difference between, and I tell interns, between good people and social workers. Now, social workers in general, we are good people, of course, right? And we love good people. Difference is we go to school and we study to obtain skills to be able to provide the good, concrete advice to a client or information, right? Because if we tell someone, everyday nice person, it's going to be okay, or cry here, it's okay. Well, it's not. It's not going to be okay because there's no plan. If you're a social worker, we're going to school and we learn and we have theory. We know how to do referrals. We know Maslow's hierarchy. We know all these things. Now we can produce a plan, right? And meet the client's needs or help them help themselves. And how do you do all that when everything's coming down on you? And I'm saying that working in the nonprofit world, like Ms. Lam is saying, maybe you have to wear various hats, or you have to be very flexible. Because one minute, literally when I was a director at a shelter, I'm holding a baby, feeding a baby, and something else is going on. So what do you tend to first? So important to be able to center oneself, I think, in anything part of any job, and to manage your anxiety. And when we can center ourselves and say, okay, wait, I got to finish feeding this baby first, then I'll tend to this. And then we can't have a group or session if clients didn't eat. Who do I need to call to get the food so the clients can have something? So I think for me is managing anxiety. And going back to that word, I learned that in school. I'm a Bowenian at heart, Bowen's theory, right? And know your theory. I think that's also very important, because your theory, those of us that do counseling or subscribe to that, you know how to center yourself, because your theory is going to get you out of whatever problem it may be. Even me answering this question to you today, because I'm thinking, whoa, wait, there's a lot of stuff in my head. Wait, what is my theory saying? Center yourself. It's okay. It's anxiety. It's anxiety in answering this question appropriately for these group of people. So does that kind of try to make sense what I'm saying? I think that's what it's been for me. Thank you.
For me, I would say learning advocacy skills is a really big deal. The longer you're doing the work, a lot of times, the more you'll see systems that you're like, wow, that system really just keeps people down. Or you'll see things that feel really broken and that impact the families that you're working with on really kind of deep and profound ways. And it's really, it can be really challenging to figure out what do I do with what I'm seeing. And so I think development of advocacy skills, and then kind of a little bit on the flip side of that is also releasing judgment. So maybe unconditional positive regard for the people that you're working with. So that definitely means believing that they're doing the best they can in the circumstances that they're in, but also not holding that pressure of it's my job to rescue or save them. So if you have unconditional positive regard, then it frees you up to be able to walk alongside rather than putting yourself in a rescue position, which ultimately tires you out and takes away from their recognition of their capacity. And so to me, so for my own personal story, the way that I kind of developed these things was quite honestly through doing my own work, by being in therapy and kind of recognizing the deficiencies that I might bring into the field. And so when I was young, I really wasn't great at advocacy, and I had very strong rescue mentality. And so I actually had to do a lot of my own work in therapy on recognizing how to release those things and how to build the skills that I wanted, and kind of the patterns that I had learned that I wanted to undo. And so I think this field, to do your best work, it requires kind of some pretty transparent work on your own story so that you can be the strongest advocate for the people you serve.
All of that and more. That's a wonderful, we harp on our career competencies, teamwork and communication skills and professionalism, but I love hearing some of these other pieces come in, things that are particularly important in social services. I love this. Thank you all so much. What are some different types of positions that you see in your department and organizations? One of the things that we try to help with our students with is seeing beyond the brand name, right? Seeing beyond, this is what we do. And so they assume, I use Frito-Lay. They think, okay, they make chips, but what else goes into it? So what other things are part of your organizations?
This is a great one, because what do you think of when you think of Goodwill? Oh, donations, retail, stores. So Goodwill is more than just a retail store. We have a whole workforce development department, which is what I'm in. We have grants through the state, grant funded programs through the state. We do more than just sell clothes. So some of our retail stores actually fund some of our programs. We have a homeless program where we have people that go out to the community and meet with the homeless people off of Lancaster, get them upskilling to get them jobs. We have a youth program for 16 to 24-year-olds for them to get their GED and earn paid work experience. And then there's the veterans program. But different departments that I do work with, accounting is one of them. Working with the grant, you have to have all the financials good to go. We have an entire transportation department, which we have a whole warehouse to where we're getting things that are donated. We separate them out. We send them out to our stores. People come to buy them. In community engagement, which we have a whole social media department that works on all the social media channels and ensures that we are talking about we're more than just a store. We help and serve clients in the community. We help them to get upskilling credentials. We are just more than a store, because we actually have a school on site, North Texas Institute. And that's really popular because we have medical billing and coding, CDL, forklift. Yeah.
So Benton County Friends of the Family, we are most well known, right? We are providers of services for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. We do have a shelter as well as advocacy, and by advocacy, I mean we do have attorneys on board to help the ladies or any victim of domestic violence in accessing protective orders, divorces, or whatever is necessary for them and their children. We have the transitional housing program, as well as prevention programs where we go out into the community to speak at schools now via Zoom at this time because of COVID, but we're going into the schools to talk about bullying and other things too, and also in the colleges about such things like date rape, etc. Things that we can do to have eyes wide open regarding abuse. One thing that some people don't know about us that we also have a fabulous SAT team. And that team, what happens if any person is sexually assaulted in this Denton County area, and the person is in the hospital for a SANE exam, one of our team members goes to this person to provide support. We provide different information, and if the client at that point would like to speak to a counselor or come to shelter, we're ready to do that triage. And just to provide support, because many times what has happened is the person is alone. They might not have family members, or they may be a student here at our university too, where there's no one here. So that's something maybe not a lot of people know about, and they're really wonderful people. And many of the group is comprised of volunteers from our community that we train people in the community to come in and do that. So shout out to anyone who might want to volunteer to do that. The training is extensive. It is a 1-week training. But I believe it would be very rewarding if that's something that someone might be interested in doing.
So we have a partnership with AmeriCorps. So we use AmeriCorps for our live-in staff in the homes. And then we also have, we call them family coaches, but in kind of the public, they're called case managers. That's just sometimes a really activating word for some people. So we say family coaches here. And so then we have people who supervise those positions. We also actually have someone on staff who works when we have women who have, I think is it CPS, Child Protective Services in Texas? So ours is called DCS. But when we have a woman who has a DCS case, she meets with our DCS specialist just to help her kind of keep her case moving forward. We also have, our social media team, we have our grants managers, we have our compliance to make sure that we're billing appropriately for our billable services. We have someone who really just builds our programmatic calendar. Our goal is to really, for our current moms and for our alumni moms, to have a lot of classes that they can take together so that when they move out of the homes, they kind of already have a connection to the ongoing services that are offered to them. So we have someone who really builds a strong calendar of classes for the moms. We have a couple of therapists on staff. We have a substance use therapist. And so we actually now we have a peer support program where we have 4 of our alumni moms on staff as peer supports. And so we really have a team where there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of different ways that you can kind of use your skill set in this field to jump in and do work.
Thank you all so much. I'm gonna kind of combine a couple of questions here. So we may or may not be coming out of COVID. Who knows? We're paused at this point, but do you see any lasting changes that COVID has brought in how you all deliver services or, provide for your culture and your workplace that you think will continue as we return to whatever normalcy looks like?
I think it definitely gave us the option to be more hybrid, to do both if needed during that time or even during this time, because we did the whole work from home. Everybody had their laptop. That's how we're going to work. But, Goodwill is pretty accommodating if something needs to, if you have to work from home for whatever reason may be, like they're very accommodating with that. We did for a little bit require masks, and then we got rid of that, and then we got it again. And then now it's up to you if you want to. But it's also because we have very vulnerable clients that are here on campus because we have a STARS program with adults with disabilities, kind of like an adult daycare rehab center. And so sometimes they can't, they're very vulnerable due to their health circumstances. So we just try to be very mindful of that. Obviously, extensive cleaning and cleaning up after everybody that is there. Do I see it lasting? I think it's going to be the personal choice of a mask or not. And I do believe that, if we need to, I like that we can do the whole one day in the office, one day at home. I think that's great.
We're kind of sort of the same, but not really. We do have the mask in our shelter area, most definitely, because again, that vulnerable population of just a mix of children and adults and children going to school, and then and we have had our residents testing positive, and when they test positive for COVID or they're having symptoms, when they're having symptoms, then of course we do provide the medical care once. And once they're showing symptoms, they are placed at a hotel with the children, and we deliver to the families food and everything they need while they're recuperating, the medical care while they're recuperating from this virus. I think another thing we're seeing, again, being a counselor from my perspective, is this whole Zoom stuff, Zoom counseling or telehealth, and it's a mixed bag where many clients enjoy it. And that I think goes hand in hand with what the mental health diagnosis might be, to where maybe we were introverted to begin with because of our mental health diagnosis, and we can kind of stay behind and not be seen in person. But it's helpful because it's still an outlet for that person to be able to process what is happening. But quite the opposite. I do work here in person, and I do see clients in person. And that's kind of that other reason that some clients really want that. And they told me specifically, I want to see your face. I want to know what you look like. And it's kind of, I guess, and I respect that, because maybe like going to see a doctor, you can see a MD online, but are they really getting the whole picture? And I think from the client's perspective is like, are you really getting me? And that's what a client told me the other day. I wanted to see you in person, see if I really like you. I said, okay, and I made the cut, so that was good. So we do provide in person and for children as well. And we're just taking those precautions at this time. But it's a choice that we do provide services via telehealth and in person.
So when COVID kind of first blew up, we had to kind of shut down our programming, and our houses remained open, but we kind of had the moms stay pretty much, just like all of us were, where we were pretty in lockdown. But as far as our outreach center, where our alumni moms really rely on us, we had to close down a lot of our classes and kind of brainstorm, and we wound up really switching to more of kind of an emergency, if you need food, if you need that kind of stuff. And so that caused us to really partner with a lot more places in the Valley to focus on our food that we had available and those kinds of resources. It got us a lot more connected with our governor's office. They started providing us with a lot of tangible needs that we could provide to our moms. And so for a while, we offered our classes only virtually, and then really picked up on being an emergency kind of stopping point when people needed things. And as COVID has kind of taken its course, we have kept our option of doing classes online open for the moms, but also they're able to come in person. But a lot of those partnerships we had to get kind of the concrete items that we needed, we've kind of kept in place. And so now we are actually able to provide more of those kinds of needs than we were before. We also got to partner with the governor's office to provide rent assistance to some of our, I don't know about Texas, but in Arizona, as soon as rent assistance was available, it was gone about a day later because so many people were in line. And so we were really able to sort of help a lot of our alumni community with rent assistance when they were needing help with that. We also were able to provide, we are able to do testing on site for families when they need it. And then we've had a few different vaccine clinics where we've been able to give the vaccine from here for moms and their children. And so at this point, I feel like we've done the best that we can to kind of continue with the work that we're doing in spite of such a hard time. We are kind of seeking out, a lot of our alumni community when they weren't able to come to this building, which is kind of a lot of their safe place. We were kind of trying to remind them that we are opened back up, because when it falls out of your routine, a lot of times it can be hard to get back into it. And so right now we're doing a lot of work of how do we invite people back in and ensure that we're doing the best we can to be safe and all of that. And so it's definitely, COVID presented a lot of challenges, a lot. But there have been some benefits that have come, good things that have come from the work, the way that we have adjusted our work during it.
Thank you. It's always interesting to see what has changed and what's going to stay and move forward. And, definitely a disruption in our world of work and education in our lives. So let's switch gears a little bit. How have you been able to find support during your professional journey? Are there associations, groups, or particular individuals? Did you have mentors? How did you seek out or find support?
When I first started, I had such a great boss, and she was my mentor. She helped to grow me to be the leader that I am today. But also, I would say on the side for professional and personal growth is I was talking to somebody. I believe in mental health, and mental health is super important. So that was kind of like my avenue, and having people that I trust so that I can talk to and be open and vulnerable with.
For me, I have three big mentors in this career, and one is one of my professors. One was my supervisor for my internship, and the other was my very first supervisor in probation. And I think that I still go back. It's always nice when they call you a kid in this age and stage in life. It's nice to be a kid to somebody, and that they can kind of staff things with you. It's like, hey kid, it's gonna be okay. But I think it's really important that the connection or the relationship professional that I have had with them professionally. Um, and by calling kid and these kind of things is, also maybe, how can you say, sorry, I think in Spanish a lot. It's just that empathy, maybe you want to say that empathy for you too, because they have been through that. So I never discount those relationships I've had professionally, started at the teacher and supervisors. Those are my mentors. So definitely, hopefully you feel comfortable when you're in supervision or with your professors or coworkers, that they can become that for you as well.
For me at the work that I'm at currently, it's a sweet environment. And so I was a few coworkers, and I just kind of recognized, our team knows how taxing social work can be, but maybe the CEO doesn't, or things like that. And so we kind of asked ourselves, what would we need to feel supported that she might not be thinking of, because this isn't her area of expertise. And so we went to her and basically said, hey, we'd really like to have where our programs team or our social service team does a book study together every couple of months where we're reading and kind of processing together. And then we'd like to have a day every 6 months where we do like a retreat together. So we go be in nature or do something artistic or something so that we can recharge together as a team. I know not every environment can do that, but for us, she said, yeah, that's great, and helped build it into she built it into the budget. And so that's ways that we recharge as a team. Personally, I would say relying on having really deep and meaningful friendships is such a big deal. And then, like I was saying earlier, just continuing to do the work on your own self. Helping fields tend to draw people who oftentimes have their own things that they kind of need to work through. And so it's just really important to find a good therapist or somebody who helps you to really process your own story as you're doing this work.
Thank you. And last question before we let some of our students ask some questions here. But so what advice do you have for somebody who wants to get into the social services field? What do they need to be doing, and what?
I would say seek opportunities that are available and presented to you, and then continue to grow your skills. You never know when you're going to need to utilize them. Don't stop learning. Learning is a big one.
I would say in your experiences at school, right? Okay, what am I taking from school and applying it to real life situations? I'm just going to kind of go back to what I said in the very beginning. It's important to know what you like, but more important to know what you don't like. And don't calm yourself. Don't like, I can get into this. The pay is better here, or it's got. Wait a minute, you want to be miserable? And it's very different. No difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit organization too, where maybe it's a mental health hospital, maybe paying you more, but it might also remember what your morals and values are, especially in social services. Like Emily was saying, hey, maybe don't go there. And I'm with you 100%. There's places you don't want to go there because maybe it's very conflicting to there's a reason you work at a certain agency, because agencies are also, when you're seeking out this work, what's the mission statement of that agency? Does it jive with your morals, values, or why you even got into this to begin with. So that's kind of what I would have to say. Know what you don't like, and know. I love what Emma said. Know where not to go. Just keep safe and be happy where you're at.
I would echo everything that they both said. I think that, again, the work that you're challenging the people that you work with to do toward wellness, to be challenging yourself as well, and paying attention to how you're doing. And also kind of piggybacking to really know what it is that you're passionate about. I at least believe that everybody has something that we're made to kind of fight for. And so identifying what that is and allowing that to help kind of direct you in this field. There's so many opportunities and so many different ways that social work or being in the kind of social service fields can take you. And so pay attention to the things that you kind of feel that rile you up or get you passionate, and kind of seek out opportunities to work in those areas. I know for me, that's kept me. And it, like, kind of piggybacking off of what I think both of you mentioned, it helped me to make decisions that actually felt good for me, rather than, well, that place would have paid me a little bit more, but I would have felt like I was kind of not living in my passion at all. And so kind of really paying attention to what it is that you feel like you're wanting to fight for. And also, yeah, continuing to study, continuing to find ways to learn, to challenge your mind, to find people who are going to talk with you about the topics that you're interested in, and to, yeah, just take really good care of yourself.
All great advice. Thank you. And I will jump in and say, get involved and volunteer and start making those connections now. If our panelists don't mind, if they want to drop their LinkedIn and or email in the chat, so that if they are okay with our students connecting with you, that would be wonderful. And at this point, do we have any questions from our student attendees? Anybody have any questions to ask? Anybody? Raegan, go ahead.
Hi, I had a question. I'm interested in nonprofit work, but I've looked around, or whenever I search, there's a lot of like religious organizations. So I was wondering if any of you guys had worked at any like religious nonprofits, and like if there was a way to kind of figure out how, because I don't ever like the idea of kind of like forcing someone to be like, oh yes, we're gonna pray every day if you're gonna use our services, or things like that. Like, I don't want to enforce a religion on somebody. So I didn't know what your take on that was.
I have worked at a religious nonprofit before. I think it's really a matter of doing your research. Some places are going to be like that. Some places are going to say, if you want our services, you have to believe what we believe. Other places are not necessarily saying that you have to believe what we believe. This is just what our nonprofit is rooted in, and it kind of shapes the way we choose to act. And so it's really about doing that homework. I've worked for one faith-based nonprofit that I didn't stay very long, because even though I was a member of that particular faith, I didn't like the pressure on other people to, you have to be a member of this faith in order to receive services. And another time I knew that it was a place of, it was a nonprofit that was faith-based, but I didn't feel that there was a pressure connected. So it's really about doing that homework. It's kind of digging a little bit deeper even than just asking maybe in an interview. I would say probably checking in with people who have worked there, or checking in with people who have received services there, because oftentimes in interviews they might say, oh yeah, we're faith-based, but we don't force our clients or anything. But then the clients are like, oh yeah, they do. And so you might want to do a little, digging when it comes to that. But it can be a really great kind of sector to work in if you find one that fits you.
Raegan, we have some resources that can help you make connections with different organizations and how to do some of that research. So we're happy to help there. Other questions? Anybody else? You know, we're kind of closing in on time, but we do have time for another question if anybody's got anything. All right, I will ask one then. What's your favorite thing about what you're currently doing? What's the thing that gets you out of bed every day?
For me, it is, I've always said I've always wanted to work with youth because I was a teen mom. I went to a continuation school. So the GED program that we do have, very relatable. I have a story that I can share with the youth that come through the program. So I always wanted to, you know, work in that field of with youth that were going through things, because I work with youth going through the juvenile system, teen parents, dropouts, kickouts, whatever, you name it. I've met them all. Another thing I've also said is if I wasn't working with youth, I would love to be working with veterans. And then the opportunity presented itself to where I got to manage our veterans program. So the fact that I was able to do this, I'm very fortunate, very grateful. And I've only been with Goodwill for 3 years and I've been able to move up to director. I think that's a pretty big accomplishment.
I really enjoy serving all of the people in the population that we serve here. I conduct group sessions as well as individual therapy, but I think my heart always lies very much in the Latinx community. For this reason, being bilingual, especially if it's a sexual assault, that the client, when processing every nuance of what has happened to her, feels comfortable because it's in her language and that I can respond and there's a true understanding of what she's conveying to me. I think, again, I 110% support, you know, we're as social workers that we're doing everything we can for a client. I just enjoy when I can provide that service for that person and making them feel more comfortable, if we can maybe say that, for such a traumatic situation. So that's what gets me here at the office every day, because I do conduct a Latina group, so we get to do that. So I think that would be it.
And for me, it's every Thursday I get to lead a support group for current and alumni moms. And there's probably about 25 women who come. And I come with different ideas of what we can talk about in the group, but really that's just if it's silent in there and there's not kind of group-led conversation. And almost never do I have to use that because the women really just take that time to just support one another. And many of them cite that time as kind of what really keeps them going through their week and keeps them, sometimes they kind of say that that's what keeps them clean, what keeps them willing to go receive the mental health care that they need and all that kind of stuff. And so that group is really meaningful. And then also just getting to kind of be the touch point a lot of times for when our, if women come in crisis, a lot of times my role is to help them to just, if they're dysregulated, to help them get kind of back to being regulated so that we can get a plan in place to help them. And I just really love that work of getting to help, like helping people get out of their crisis mind and into their, you know, kind of just planning and thinking about how they can move forward. It's really rewarding and it's really, it's a challenge that it gets me out of bed and gets me coming to work every day.
It's great. That goes back to knowing your why, doesn't it? And Raegan had one quick follow-up here of what's turnover like in your field right now?
Are you asking for employees? Okay, it's difficult to find employees right now. I think everybody is struggling to find people to work.
Yeah, I don't think that's limited to nonprofit right now. I think that everybody's kind of reevaluating where they are in their lives and where they want to go moving forward. In a non-pandemic, what is turnover normally fairly high, or do you keep people around for a while?
We try to keep people around because we believe in promoting within too. But things happen, people move away, or it's no longer a fit for them and they want to go somewhere else. I think that's the normalcy of it.
I believe the same here. I think with the pandemic, what we've seen an increase of a lot of suicide ideation. Those of us that are counselors, and but we're made for that. That's kind of something we studied for. Going back to the what we studied for, right? But maybe those of the individuals, the employees that are the ones taking the hotline, the crisis line calls, there might be a little bit more of that turnover because even though there's training, I think it's a different dynamic now with this COVID going on to where domestic violence, if you can imagine, I mean, the core of domestic violence is power and control. So now when we're in the quarantine, can you imagine being with your abuser? Now you're in there. I mean, you're not leaving, and this is 24/7. And so even trying to get, even though we had counseling over the phone and such, that's going to be hard if the abuser is there all of the time. So, and that trickles down. It just trickles down to everything we do here too. We're also seeing the really big rise in homeless population that are being abused on the street, just because of this. And mental health is sky high. And because MHMR closed down to where they could not come in person because of COVID. And if I give you a phone or a computer, we're going to do a session. Oh, if you're homeless, where are you going to plug this thing in? Or how do you technology of the diagnosis of schizophrenia or something extreme? So that I'm just saying it does factor in to a turnover rate, even though training is good and the intent is good. That's a lot of added stress with this virus is brought on to, I think, in this field for us in domestic violence.
For us, we have some expected turnover because we do use AmeriCorps, which for our live-in staff. So they're expected to be there for a year and then do turnover, and we do what we can to help the homes kind of prepare for that natural turnover. As beyond that, we have a lot of our staff that have been here 5 years or more. And then we have a few positions that we kind of know. I think this is fairly common in the social work world, that you kind of know this is a position that someone's going to kind of come into as like a first position where they're sort of getting their feet wet and figuring out what they want to do. And it's probably not going to be something that someone stays and lands in for years and years to come. And so we sort of have done some work around anticipating what roles we can expect people to stay and what roles are probably just going to be maybe a couple of years of having somebody, and planning accordingly. My particular agency does a lot of work to try to kind of keep employees here, because there are a lot of nonprofits about this size. And like I was saying earlier, it's a small world. And so it's really easy to kind of have a little competition with one another for getting your staff. And so the particular place I work does a lot to try to kind of make it a comfortable place to work. I'm really thankful for that. So our turnover is probably about what a lot of nonprofits our size have, which is not a lot, but not none.
Absolutely. Again, that's kind of across the board, and I think so. But well, we are out of time today, and I want to be cognizant of y'all's time. And thank you so much for joining us today. As is evidenced in the comments, I think our students have really appreciated hearing from you all, and hopefully they can connect with you. And thank you all so much for your great advice.
Thank you.